Evening and welcome to the world of Starware Ministries. It's a ministry doing research into the world of supernatural, UFOs, and unexplained. I've been doing this research in UFOs since 1970 when I was in junior high. My first science project I did was about UFOs and what they were, where they could come from. Now, ever since then, I've been studying anything I can on UFOs and stuff. And there's good reason why it's doing it, but I'm not going to go into it right now. But welcome to the world of UFOs. It's a world that's very controversial, but is something that's really much in the news right now a lot of times because the U.S. government has been releasing a lot of documents, declassified documents and declassified videos that you can find online and stuff. They don't really tell you much, but it shows you how severe and serious the U.S. government is taking the UFO phenomena. Years ago, when I was a kid, if you tell somebody you saw a UFO, they go, "You saw a UFO? Well, you're crazy." You thought you were some redneck, hick idiot. Now that's all changed. Now it's very serious, and we even have organizations like MUFON, which I'm a member of, that does research and study and keeps statistics on UFOs all the work across the world. So what we can find out UFOs come from a biblical perspective. So tonight we're going to take a look at UFO phenomena from a different angle than a lot of people look at it. That's the Bible perspective. So can we find out? First of all, I have to understand what a UFO is. What is a UFO? Do you know what a UFO is? A UFO is an unidentified flying object. It's anything in the sky you can identify. Nobody can identify. It could be an airplane. It could be a kite. It could be a Chinese lantern. It could be a drone. It's a million things that can be seen in the night sky that no one knows what it is. Even stars. Here's an example and an experiment that you can do on your own. Go outside when it's really nice and dark and the stars are bright. Pick one of the bright stars, stand and stare at it. Stand there and look and stare at it. What do you see? You'll notice one thing peculiar about the star. The star isn't moving, but you think it is. Because the perception thinks that because how your eyes are and the way our bodies are, we think the star is moving. And it looks like it can be misconstrued as a UFO or something. Because it's very simple to misidentify a lot of things in the night sky. So the UFO is anything that cannot be identified, which has a large range of materials and stuff. So it could be anything. But also, we have to understand that just because we don't know what it is, doesn't mean it's alien and that's a UFO. It could be anything. So we have to look at the whole UFO thing in a proper perspective. But probably 80 to 90% of UFO sightings can be explained. But the biggest problem is the 10, 15, 20% that cannot be identified. Here we have, for instance, statistics from this year, from the MUFON sites. In January 2023, this year, we had a total of 592 sightings worldwide. That's 592 sightings that were reported. Probably a lot more were not reported. Out of that 592, the United States had 471. So the bulk of sightings in UFOs are being seen where? The United States. But you look at the states, California had a big number of 62. 62. By just the United Kingdom itself only had 36. So what's going on? Well, let's continue. But also out of that 592, we see there was 26 landings reported. That was spacecraft or other craft, identified craft that were actually landing on and be seen. But out of that 592, we also have 42 entities observed. These are beings, they don't know what they are. It could be a number of things. We don't know. It's called entities. We have 42. That's just a few statistics from January. But you go up into April now, April 2023, the number goes from 592 worldwide to 583. It drops a little bit, not much. But in the U.S. has 471 here in January, but in April we had 441. Then Canada had 36. And the United Kingdom had 23. And here again, California had the highest number in any state. That is 53. We have 14 landings reported and 27 entities reported. But if you go to March 2023, something really strange happened in March 2023. We see the number really jumps. Here is 471. Here's here's 592 and 483. But in March, it jumped to 771. Out of 771, a total of 639 were just on the United States alone. And the Kingdom was total 37. But now that California had, again, the highest number, 89 reported. And out of that 771, there were 28 landings and 39 entities observed. So what is going on here? Why is all these things being reported? People are definitely seeing something out there. So what's going on? How can we understand this from a biblical perspective? Well, if you have a Bible, turn into Ephesians chapter 6. In Ephesians chapter 6, it's a very popular series of verses in the Bible that talks about the armor of God. And everybody likes to talk about armor of God. We teach kids and stuff about the helmet of salvation, the breastplate, and the shield of faith, and the shoes of peace. And we go all around and teach the kids all this stuff. But why do we have need of the armor of God? Paul writes in there in Ephesians the reason why we need the armor of God. And something people really has not really put in perspective is what the Bible says. So take a look at what Paul's reasons for putting a full armor of God. And see in verse 12 in Ephesians chapter 6, it says the battle on earth is not against flesh and blood. So we see the battles we go against from crime to riots in the streets to shootings, all that stuff. It's not just people. It could be also spiritual powers influencing people to do those things. So we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual powers. And these spiritual powers are rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of darkness. Wow, that's heavy. World forces of darkness. There's a lot of darkness in the world today. But if you go even deeper in the verse, there's a part of the verse that no one pays attention to, but it's probably the most important thing in part of the verse. And that is this: we fight against the spiritual wickedness. Spiritual wickedness. And where is the spiritual wickedness? It's the only one of the powers that has a location, and that is in heavenly places. The Greek word for heavenly here does not mean God's abode. It means celestial. So it means Paul is saying that we're fighting against spiritual powers and of wickedness in where? That's right, space, celestial. So we have powers in space above us that we don't know about. So it's easy to see that there could be something in the spiritual powers going out and doing all this stuff that we don't know much about, because we don't see that because we're looking to understand things from a worldly perspective, not a spiritual perspective. So when you see something you can't explain, what people do, they find the most logical reason. They don't look for the spiritual reasons. We live in a spiritual world. The world we live in is not just flesh and blood, but spiritual. You are a spiritual creation. You are a spiritual person. You have a spiritual entity. You have a spiritual destination. And that spiritual destination is your destination of your choice. A lot of people today don't want people to be responsible for its choices and decisions. But God holds you accountable for your decisions. Like it or not, that's reality. So we live in this world, we have fighting against all these powers and principal powers. So what is going on? Why is there this high number in the United States alone? Why is the United States the highest number of any country in the world? There's a couple possible reasons. One, we have a big military buildup. We have Area 51, Area 52. We have other places. We do have a lot of experimentation going on with aircraft. Good example is the TR-3. There's a triangle craft, and it's called a TR-3B. That's, it's really, everybody knows about that. But it's experimental craft, and it's a triangle. So people see something flying in the sky as a triangle, they think it's a UFO, and it's not a UFO. It's a U.S. military craft. So TR-3B is just an example that a lot of those UFO sightings may not be spiritual, they may not be alien, they may not just be the government. So it's the experiment. Well, so say this 471 United States is, if we take it and divide it in half, that's be 220 and 220. Say half of the sightings were U.S. military. This is the experimental U.S. military, just half of it would be 220. The other 220 and not unexplained. So they leaves plenty of room for spiritual powers and other beings and other things to take place. Now, we have to understand that Ephesians is telling us something very profound here. Paul is writing something profound, that we are struggling against these spiritual powers. And we have to understand these spiritual powers operate different than we think they do. For instance, if you go to see a movie like The Exorcist or something like that, and it's all about demonic power, a lot of people have gone to see these movies, have afterwards had demonic instances in their life. Why is that? Because you're giving permission for demonic powers to enter into your life. So the United States has been conducting demonic activities to get high technology from demonic sources, much like Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany had a group called the Vril Society. The Vril Society used channeling and stuff to get advanced technology. And the United States picked up where they left off. So by doing that, you open the door for all this activity to take place. So we have to understand the battle on earth is not against flesh and blood. It's against spiritual powers. So the only way you protect yourself is through Christ. All authority on heaven and earth has been given to Jesus. And because we are in Christ, we have that same authority. So we have a choice to make. Are you going to be protected from all these powers and forces and give your life to Christ? Or are you going to run and hide and hope the best will happen to you? Because what's going to happen on the pond of earth. They read the book of Revelation. Things are going to be happening on the pond of earth that was going to blow your mind. Okay? That is coming. You can bet the bank on that. So when that all happens, how are you going to respond? You have to respond for what Paul says, put on the full armor of God, because this is what you have to do to withstand what's coming in the future. So have a good evening. Have faith in God. And remember, always put your faith in God, not in man.